Hi, how's everybody doing? Good, I hope. Has anybody ever wondered what it'd be like for a day in the life of a field artillery member while you're in the field training for battle? Because I'm gonna kind of give you a little bit of an insight of what that's like today. Basically, we just went. My unit, Alpha Battery 1st 15th Field Artillery, here stationed in Korea. We just got back from the field a couple days ago, and we did a lot of tactical training in order to prepare us to be ready in case we ever need to help the ROK Army neutralize the North Korean threat, just over the border, about 20 miles from here. There are three main types of training that we really touched on that are very key types of training for field artillery. The first one is fire missions. The second one is quick reaction force, and the third one is survivability movement. Now I'm going to touch on each one a little bit more in depth. Now, as far as fire mission goes, that is our basic loading and firing of field artillery rounds in order to supply support to infantry units. Now, what happens when we do fire missions is there's forward observers, and they scout out the location. I mean, they're kind of on the front lines, if you will, or behind the lines almost. But they scout out the locations that need to be fired upon, and they send all of the information to us through a computer system, and through a system of numbers. We take those numbers and we use them to figure out how hard the charge needs to be fired, what angle the tube needs to be at, what direction it needs to be in order to hit our proper target. Now, what we do is, once we get this information, we load the round, we take the charge, we load the charge, and then that determines how far the round is going to go. Then we take the fuse. The fuse ignites the charge when the firing pin activates it. So the firing pin hits the fuse. It ignites the charge. The charge propels the round out of the tube, and the round goes and explodes on said firing position. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we have a sustained rate of fire. This gets very tiring because these rounds are each 100 pounds each. So I mean, when you're constantly lifting and loading these rounds, it gets very tiring. We have to supply a sustained rate of fire, which is at least 1 round per minute. So that is the main object of field artillery, is to supply fire support to help support infantry units. But there's also other things that are involved in field artillery. It's not just firing rounds. We also had to do quick reaction force training, which is basically a pre-designated team. They have a rally point, and what their job is, God forbid we ever happen to get ambushed or we engage any type of contact on our firing point, this team has to be ready, standing by. They have to rally together, and they have to be able to engage the enemy and sustain the enemy, and they have to be able to basically be the first line of defense against any type of attack we might incur at the firing position. So what they do is, if they happen to catch any POWs, they segregate the POWs, and they segregate them by rank and gender, so that there can be no fraternization amongst the POWs. There can be no clans trying to be formulated amongst them and things like that. So they segregate the POWs. And then what they also have to do is they have to be combat lifesaver certified, because when they're going to be our first line of defense, there's bound to be casualties, or God forbid there is. They all need to know how to apply some type of quick reaction first aid, so that there can at least be some time bought, so that we can get any type of casualties to the help that they need, which is usually going to be at least a couple miles away. So we need to be able to have some kind of quick reaction first aid. And we do have medics standing by, but they're usually spread pretty thin, and what if the medic goes down or something? We need to have some type of quick reactionary force, and that type of stuff saves lives, whether it's applying a tourniquet or quick clot to a wound or whatever it might happen to be. So that type of stuff is very important. And lastly, what we have is we have survivability moves. Now, this is a huge key part in surviving, as well as being able to continue with the mission in field artillery. Because once we do engage contact on our firing point, or there is some type of ambush, and quick reaction force, once that team engages the enemy, what the guns need to do is they need to be able to immediately pack up. They have to be able to move out to another firing point, which has already been scouted out, it's already been predetermined just in case this happens, and we already know how to go, we already know what direction we need to go in, exactly what place each gun needs to be in once it gets to the new firing point, and exactly what direction it needs to be facing. So that way, if we do engage any type of contact, they can immediately pack up all their stuff, they can move out and be ready to continue with the firing mission within 3 to 5 minutes tops. So that way the infantry is not left hanging without field artillery support for too long, if at all. And when they do these survivability moves, they need to be very quick about it, they need to be very tactical about it, because we don't want the enemy scouting out our next location. I mean, we are constantly trying to stay one step ahead of the enemy, so that way we're not ever caught with our hand in the fire, per se. Now, with all these three things combined, it makes up a huge part of the field artillery mission and tactical training, because these three things all go hand in hand. We need to be able to do these three things effectively, and in order to be able to effectively do our jobs without being a detriment to the mission. So we're constantly training with these things so we can always be ready to help the South Korean Army, the ROK Army, to engage any type of North Korean attack and neutralize that North Korean attack, and help keep South Korea as a democratic society, and so that way they don't have to risk their way of life that they've become so comfortable in enjoying. And I thank you guys all for your time, and I hope that I've been able to help you out and enlighten you a little bit in a day of what it's like to be in a day of training, whether it be the fire missions, the quick reaction force team, as well as the survivability movements, which are all a very key, essential part of the field artillery mission. Thank you very much for your time. This has been Private Corey McHugh. Thank you.